Okay, we're back with Burlington on the Spot. Welcome. Today we have Eleanor Herndon. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted you to come in to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the Colorado Trail, but first let's talk about how you got out here and the homestead, and I just want to hear all that information, all that interesting history.
Okay. Well, I live on the homestead that my grandparents homesteaded in 1907. This was my mother's parents. They came from Kentucky to Selden, Kansas on an immigrant train, and I understand they were in Selden for 2 years. And then they came on to Colorado in a covered wagon in 1907.
So we're talking 113 years ago?
Yes. In 2007, we became a century farm, which is a farm or ranch in Colorado that's been in the same family for 100 years. And the place where I live has only had 3 owners, my grandparents and my parents and my husband and I. My grandparents, I'm not sure why they came from Kentucky. I don't know why they left. When they left there, they had 3 children. After they came to Colorado, they had 3 more. My mother was the next to the youngest, but her youngest sibling, a little boy, died when he was about a year and a half, so she actually grew up as the youngest in the family, and she was born there where I live. The first 3 years that Grandpa and Grandma lived out there, by the way, their last name was Hughes,
Okay.
William Harvey, and Roseller. I think that's a strange first name.
Rosella.
They were called Harv and Rosa.
Okay.
And they lived in a dugout. And
what's a dugout?
Where you dig kind of a cave in the back, kind of in a creek bank or in a side of a hill, and then you build a wooden front on it. So it's not a sod house, which they built later, but it's a place to live, a cave with a wooden front on it.
And so that was in 1907 when they first got there.
Yes.
So how did that work? They moved from Kentucky. They were branching out, and then they picked a place, and they had to buy the land. And
they homesteaded it.
What does that mean?
Well, it's
exactly?
free land. You have to live on it. They call it prove up on it. You have to live on it for 5 years. I have the original homestead papers.
Really?
I think after 5 years they had to pay a fee of $6 or something like that.
And then it became theirs.
Yes.
So is that how people got land back then? I know I should probably know that.
Yes. Out here it was 160 acres. I found out that, like in Utah, it was a section, 640 acres.
Right.
But I know out here it was 160 acres.
And is that still what it is today, 160?
No. Well, no, it's been added to. Then in 1912, I believe the other paper says, they got the 160 acres next to them. So I'm not... So I presume they were able to homestead more. I'm not real. I'm kind of iffy on some of that. I don't know some of it. And then when my parents lived there, they bought some ground next to it, so that there's more land than that now. And then my husband's family, it says "Love thy neighbor." I married my neighbor.
Oh, really?
So his family's land is next door to that, and so we have some of that also.
Gotcha. So back then, you would go out, find a plot of land. You'd look around and say, hey, I like this. I want to homestead it. Then when you lived there long enough, then you had to get the papers.
Right.
Is that right?
Generally, yes. I presume by 1907, maybe quite a lot of the land was gone. And, of course, you would have to go some way through, I don't know if it's through the state or the county. At that time, I think this was El Paso County or Elbert County, maybe.
Elbert?
I think it was part of Elbert County. And how they had to determine what was available. And all of that I am not up on.
Yeah, that would be fascinating to figure out. Did they survey it? Or
it had to have been, yes, it had to have been surveyed. The quarter of land that they homesteaded, the first one, is quite hilly. And I always wondered why they didn't choose flatter land. But they came from Kentucky. Maybe it didn't look that hilly.
Yeah, that's true. Them. Or maybe somebody else staked a claim, or
maybe that's all that was left.
Huh.
But my grandmother's cousin homesteaded some land right next to them. It was a little flatter. And but anyway, they lived in that dugout. I presume they probably lived in the covered wagon while they dug the dugout.
Wow.
I mean,
No, they didn't have a choice in the weather out here. I guess they probably did in the summer.
I would think. Some of this stuff I'm not sure of because my mother's older siblings all moved away in the dirty 30s, and I probably wouldn't have asked them anyway because I wouldn't have been that interested.
Right.
But then in 1910, they built a sod house, but they put it up on the hill. And sometime or other they put down a well. Before that, I don't know where they got water, whether they went into Stratton.
Huh.
I presume they went to Stratton to get coal to burn because there's no wood.
Right.
And the railroad was in Stratton at that time.
In 1910?
1907. I think it came in the late 1890s.
Okay.
According to the history book. And then in 1922, they built the house that I live in. It's a 2-story frame house.
Right.
And then my mother grew up there, and my parents acquired it from my grandparents in 1939. I think they bought it from them probably, and moved there in 1939. I was 3, and so that's the only place I ever remember living.
And that's the only place you've lived
as a child.
As a child, okay.
Yes. One interesting thing about my mother, she wanted to go to high school so bad. And, back in the 1920s, a lot of people didn't go to high school, especially boys, but my mother wanted to go to high school so bad. And she was the youngest in the family. Grandpa and Grandma needed her help. So her first year of high school, she came to Burlington, lived with her sister and brother-in-law, and went to high school in Burlington. Her second year, she lived with her sister in Siebert, and went to Siebert. Her junior year, she rode a horse from where I live 4 miles south to First Central School, which had a high school.
Huh.
So she rode a horse 4 miles every morning, every night. She said some nights in the winter it was so cold that when she got home that Granddad had to help her off of her horse.
Wow.
She said, why couldn't I have had a down coat? Why didn't they make down coats? They made feather beds.
Yeah.
So, and then her senior year, she lived in Stratton with her brother and sister-in-law. So she graduated from Stratton in 1928.
After she went to Burlington, Siebert, and First Central.
Yes.
And what's First Central now? Is that just gone?
It's a pasture, yeah.
It's a pasture.
But it was a school until about 1950. I remember going there when I was in school to track meets and things.
Yeah. Well, this is like when you hear people always be like, back in my day.
Well, that's why.
But this is like actually really true. You're like, I rode a horse 4 miles in snow.
Well, now, my sister and I, my older sister and I went to country school, and we walked 1.5 miles.
Really?
It wasn't 4 miles, but we walked 1.5 miles, morning and evening. Actually, maybe that's why I like the outdoors. I didn't mind that 1.5 mile walk, especially in the evenings on pretty weather, because you could kick rocks and pick up caterpillars and
yeah, and it was a different time. You didn't have to worry, I don't think about.
Well, you didn't see anybody.
You didn't see anyone, so
there were no houses between us and the school. On the really, really cold, windy days, walking, we had to go about 1/2 mile north and then 1 mile west, and walking against that cold wind. Oof. If Dad could get the car started, he would take us to school.
What kind of car was that?
Model A, I think.
Model A?
Until, well, no. Then a little later, by then they would have had the 36 Chevy. They had a Chevy car. But they didn't want to start back then, But
well, yeah, and it's cold.
But we walked to school. We went to country school. I went 3 years to country school. And one thing when I was thinking about coming over here, this was in the early 1940s when I was in country school, and this was in World War II, and I had a cousin who was training at Lowry Air Force Base to be a pilot.
In Aurora? Okay.
Yes. And so he would be out with this bomber doing practice runs. So when we would hear that plane coming, he would fly out around this way and tip the wings at these relatives' houses. So when we would hear that plane coming, the teacher would let us all go outside, and we would wave at him, and he would tip the wings of his airplane at us.
You know, that was him, that he was flying and training.
Yeah. And a little side note, he did fly 86 bombing missions in World War II and came home. I mean, he could tell some fascinating stories, which is off the subject of this.
No, but that's amazing.
Then when I was in 4th grade, we lived in Stratton that winter with my grandparents, or my granddad, to take care of him. And while we were in town that winter, Mother and Dad remodeled the kitchen and put in a bathroom.
Okay.
I was 10.
I know, with the stuff we take for granted,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I was 10. We got a bathroom. They put in what we called a light plant. Nowadays we would call it a generator.
What is that? Because it wasn't a generator.
Yes.
But I mean, I guess it was.
Yes. Okay. It was a Kohler light plant. They put it in the barn. They did the electric wiring in the house. When you turned on a light, it automatically turned on the light plant. So you had electric lights. When you turned the last light off, the light plant turned off. We got an electric iron and an electric toaster.
And plugged those in.
And we were happy campers.
What year was that in?
1945.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. One quick question I had, when you said that boys didn't go to high school, what was that?
Well,
because they were working on the farm, or?
For instance, like my dad, he went through 8th grade. Then they just had to work. Now, up closer, like when gradually up into the 30s and so forth, the boys did go to high school more. I learned one time that the reason they started sports in high schools was to keep the boys in school.
Really?
I have read that.
It would make sense to
keep,
so they're not working, or.
Well, they had to go out and help the family. They were big families.
Yeah.
And the boys had to go out and work. And so as time went on, of course, during World War II, a lot of them quit school and just joined the military. But now you don't think of anyone dropping out of high school.
Or not going to high school.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But in my dad's era, I don't know if hardly any boys went to high school.
Well, it just shows you how different things are now.
Right.
A lot has changed, absolutely.
Right. And yet, as far as I'm concerned, my dad had a college education. He read every evening. Even before we got electricity, we had a wind charger, and we had one electric light and one electric, well, I think they were 12 volt, and a radio. And he read every evening. He read U.S. News and World Report and Newsweek and all the cattle magazines, and he just educated himself.
Well, yeah, man of the world at that time, for sure.
Right.
Did he read to you guys then? Is that kind of...
I don't remember him reading to us much. I remember us reading at home. We didn't have a lot of books, but we had some, and reading and education was important to my parents. They wanted all of us. There were 4 in my family. I'm the second one.
So you had a brother or a sister?
I had an older sister, then myself, then my younger brother, and I have a little sister.
Okay.
My older sister's deceased.
Okay.
But they wanted us all to have an education, wanted us all to go to college. My older sister went 1 year. I went 2 years. I went to Fort Collins.
CSU? Or what was A&M?
Colorado
A&M. We're still alumni.
Back in the dark ages.
Wow.
When I went, there was 1,000 girls and 4,000 boys.
Wow.
What is there now? 35,000.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Of course, I went in the fall of 1954.
Okay.
I graduated from high school in Stratton in 54, and I have what would be a associate's degree, secretarial training, associate's degree there.
Spent 2 years up there, and then
Yes.
and then you came back.
Well, then I got married.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. So your husband must have been, he was your neighbor, right? And so were you guys the same age in the same school and everything?
No, we were in school together. He was 2 grades ahead of me. So when I was a senior in high school and a freshman in college, he was in the Army. He got drafted into the Army. So he wasn't here.
In World War II?
No, Korea.
Oh, okay.
1953.
Okay, my math was a little off there. Gotcha.
Well, it was he's deceased, but he's considered a Korean War veteran, even though he went in just as the war was ending. Mm-hmm. But he spent 1 year in Japan. He never did set foot in Korea, but he spent a year in Japan, which was really interesting. He spent most of his time playing baseball.
Interesting.
But then when I got out of college in the spring of '56, we got married, lived in Denver a year. Then we moved down to a farm south of Stratton and began our life of farming and ranching.
And so you weren't at the homestead at that time?
No. We lived at one place for like 3 years, and then we bought a farm that's about 4 miles from the homestead, and we lived there 34 years. We did not move to the homestead where I am now until 1995.
Gotcha.
I acquired it from my mother.
Okay.
So my husband and I totally remodeled the house, and we moved in there and have been working on it ever since. It had been vacant for about 12 years, and it had good bones, but it needed a lot of work.
Right.
And so we moved there, and we love it. It's on a dead-end road.
Yeah.
11 miles from Stratton.
Kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. And so now that my husband is no longer here, I still live there.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And then so how, any of the other siblings, did they have interest in doing the homestead, or are they still around here? Or?
My older sister my older sister's husband worked for my parents as a hired hand, so to speak. Uh-huh. And in 1963, my dad got killed in a car accident out there on one of the country roads. And my brother-in-law was working for them at that time, so he continued to work for Mother. And my mother built a house here in Burlington. She and Dad had planned on that. She went ahead and built that house. So my sister and brother-in-law lived there for several years, and then they went on to do other things. And Mother rented the house out some, but that didn't work real well. So my younger sister and my brother are both school teachers.
Oh, wow.
And I was talking about education. They both have master's degrees, have retired from teaching.
Wow. So
that they were not really interested in living there.
Are they around here, or are they away?
Colorado Springs area.
Gotcha.
Fountain in Colorado Springs.
So you've been here legitimately for a long time.
Forever. I was actually born in Cheyenne County.
Okay.
About halfway between Stratton and Cheyenne Wells.
Okay.
My parents lived down there. But when I was 2, they were in Denver about a year during the dirty 30s.
Yeah.
And then they moved back down. So I've been here 84 years.
Through good times, bad, all kinds of stuff.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Any farmer that's watching this will know what we went through for all those years. But it's a good place to raise children.
Yeah.
We have 3 children.
Did they go to Stratton then, or Burlington?
No, they went to Stratton.
Okay.
To school. They all, in fact, my mother, my husband, and I, 5 of my mother's 6 grandchildren and 2 of my grandchildren all graduated from Stratton. We have 4 generations that have graduated from Stratton.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, and so it is the farm life is hard, but it's a good place to raise children. Our kids are self-starters. They're self-motivated. They have a good work ethic. It was good. I think it was good. They may disagree.
No, I agree. It's even moving out here 6 years ago, or going on 7, there's just a difference. The things that you do out here are different. You have wide open spaces. It's different.
Well, like when I was a kid, we didn't have any of the electronics. We didn't have TV. We didn't have any of that stuff. But we had bicycles and horses and neighbor kids.
Yeah.
And we had the time of our lives. Do little kids play mud pies anymore?
I don't think so. What do you mean by that?
You don't know? You've never made mud pies?
I think I might have, but
well, we played house, so to speak.
Sure.
We took an old granary and we had some old pots and pans and dishes and tin cans, and we'd stir up mud and make stuff and pretend we were serving it in a restaurant. And I mean, we just played. We made believe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they still do that. Even my kids still mess with the dirt and water. Yeah. So yeah, that's how little kids are. You know, they're going to do that.
And I wouldn't know how to raise children in town because I grew up on the farm and my kids grew up on the farm. But that doesn't mean town kids can't have fun with mud pies and bicycles.
Oh yeah.
So.
Well, that's cool. And then it also gave you, going 1.5 miles each way. That gives you the love of walking and hiking, and that's probably a good segue into the Colorado Trail.
But one thing I want to mention, though,
Sure.
my parents did get a horse for my sister and I to ride to school. It was a Shetland cross of some sort, and if anybody's ever had Shetlands, they know that they are the naughtiest horses on the planet. And as soon as we'd get over the hill away from the house, the horse would dump us off and go back home. So we did better just walking.
Really? We just leave.
Clarabelle and us didn't get along well.
That's the name of it, was Clarabelle?
Clarabelle.
That was probably a big deal to get a horse, though, at that time, right? Because that's like getting a car almost. I mean,
no, most
transportation.
farm kids had a horse.
Yeah.
Most farm kids had a horse. My dad didn't really care much for horses. He had a team that he had to use some. But then as we got a little older and we asked for horses, we got horses to ride.
Gotcha.
Because it was, we just ran all over the country on the horses and bicycles.
And bicycles, yeah. Very cool. Well, yeah, no. So then let's talk about the Colorado Trail, because that's the second thing that I want to do. So the reason, when I met you and you started telling me about that, it's something I've always wanted to do. I've mountain biked part of it in Roxborough, where that little section is in Waterton Canyon.
Right.
You come up there and it ties in with the trail there. And I think I've tied in on maybe a couple of 14ers that I've done, but I've always wanted to go do that. And now one of my sons is getting old enough, 7.
Right.
Which, so you start thinking about, all right, so let's dive into that. I mean, first of all, let's start with you just telling us, because you had explained to me, I saw the video you made and we'll talk about that. But when did you do it? And just give me some background and I'll ask questions.
Well, I think one of the things that got us going on that, my husband grew up on horses.
Okay.
He loved horses. He always had a good saddle horse. He would take horses elk hunting and all this sort of thing. And we had been on a pack trip or two. And when we vacationed with our kids, we didn't have enough money to go on a vacation. We would put 3 kids in an 8-foot camper on the back of the pickup and go to the mountains for a week. That was our vacation. So we loved the outdoors and the mountains. And so in the early 1990s, I was working at the newspaper in Stratton, and we would get all these press releases about this new trail that they were working on.
Okay.
They were trying to connect existing trails and build any new trail that was necessary to make a trail from Denver to Durango.
Right.
And so I kept getting these press releases, and so I'd tell my husband about it, and so he was talking. He said, I want to ride that. Well, that was not something I really wanted to do. So he started talking to people he thought might like to go with him. Well, you stop and think, 471 miles, that's going to take a while.
That's how far it is, huh?
It was at that time. I think it's adjusted a little since then.
Shorter or longer?
I think it's 485.
Okay.
Since we did it, they have worked to get it so that none of it is on roads. At the time we went, there were a few little places where you had to be on a road. And so anyway, he would talk to people. Well, they couldn't take their family vacation to, without their wife and kids. They couldn't take that much time off from work. And so in about January of 1995, I said to him, before we get too old, I will go on the Colorado Trail with you.
So he had been trying to get you to go up until that point?
Well, he'd been trying to find someone to go with him. That's why my journal is called Before We Get Too Old.
Right, and that was in 95. So
95. And
how old were you at that time, if you don't mind me asking?
58.
Okay.
I was 58. He was 61.
Okay.
And so he said, well, let's do it this year. I think he was afraid I would back out. So we started gathering stuff. And our son bought us the guidebook, which this was our GPS.
Yeah, because the internet, there wasn't iPhones, there weren't,
nothing. This is, you have to have this.
Now, so did that book exist at that time?
This is the book. I drilled a hole in it and hung it over my saddle horn.
Okay, that's the book that you took on it. Okay.
We started gathering equipment. We had all the saddles. We had 3 mules we owned, which is what we were going to take. We'll get into mules in a minute.
So was your goal to do the entire thing?
Yes. And we thought, oh, we can do that in 30 days. Well, scrap that idea. Long story short, it ended up taking us 4 attempts over 4 different summers.
Wow.
Because of circumstances.
Right.
The first year we made it to Twin Lakes.
Leadville, right over there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Twin Lakes. We were out 17 days, and we had it.
Where did you start?
We started at Waterton Canyon.
Oh.
We started at the beginning. Our son took us there and dropped us
Is
off.
that still the beginning then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We originally were going to go to Durango and work our way back.
Okay.
But the guidebook goes the other direction.
You said, hey,
so we've got to go. We can't do this backwards.
So you drove to Durango, or no?
We went.
Started in Waterton.
Our son took us to Waterton. We got to Twin Lakes and decided we'd had enough. You have to remember, we couldn't go home until we got to a telephone to call someone to come get us.
Yeah, and things were different then. I mean, even 25 years ago, with technology and everything, because you didn't have a cell phone or anything.
No.
So when did you start? I mean, like what time of the year? Was that like in June?
My husband was a county commissioner, so we went right after the fair.
So he was a Kit Carson County commissioner?
We went the second week in August, which looking back, I think was an
Is that a good
time to go. It was past the July rainy season.
Okay.
The grass was headed out. Our mules had plenty to eat. We took no grain or anything for them, and they did great because the grass was headed out and we could graze them, and they did great.
So you guys took the mules, you packed everything up. To like plan for the whole thing, you read the book as far as the amount of gear you were going to take, because you set out on this to do the whole thing that first time, right? Thinking it was going to be 6 weeks. Well, you were going to finish at the end of September.
We thought 30 days, and
that's bold.
Well, ignorance is bliss sometimes.
No, I mean,
the first thing my husband did was he went through all of our tack, and he put new cinches, new straps, new bridle reins, anything that might break you don't want something breaking in a dangerous situation.
Right.
Mules have to have, my husband called them croupers. The dictionary says crupper or a britchin, which keeps the saddle from sliding over their withers. Because if a mule puts its head down, the saddle's going to slide right over its head. It's not like a horse.
Okay.
So you have to have that on the back of the saddle. It either goes under their tail. You've probably seen them.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we didn't have a pack saddle. We had to buy that.
And that went on the third one, because you're each riding one, and then the other one's
that went on the third one. And all this time, I'm looking at what do we need. You had to have some extra equipment for the mules in case they lost a shoe or some stuff like that.
I wouldn't even think about that. Yeah, because you have to have that stuff. It's not just you on the trip;
right.
It's those animals.
And I bought the neatest stove. I found the neatest stove. It's called a pyramid, and it folds up about 12 inches square, about this high. And when you unfold it, there's these pyramid-shaped pieces, and you build your fire in the top of it. It had a grate.
Okay.
So, because we did not want to have to build a fire on the ground every time for fear of setting the forest on fire.
Right.
And so we had that little stove, and then,
So you didn't take kerosene or any of those little things? I mean,
no.
You were just, no?
if there was no fuel, we were...
You were, yeah.
You could always, it just take a couple of handfuls of twigs to fix supper.
And then what did you guys take for food?
Well, I fried about 5 pounds of bacon before we left home because I thought frying bacon in the woods would be like calling in the bears.
Yeah.
And we took bread. After the first year, we learned to take MREs.
Right.
Meals ready to eat from
the
military. We took bacon and eggs. I took a dozen eggs. When the eggs were gone, we had oatmeal, For lunch, we would have bread and Vienna sausages, cookies, candy bars.
So you were just taking just quick, easy stuff that you could make and prepare.
Yeah, we had one pan and one skillet. We each had a pipe plate and a knife and a fork and a spoon and a pocket knife.
And then was there a tent or anything?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so you had tents.
Yes,
and
we had a tent. And an interesting, maybe it isn't interesting, but I was a little cautious, bears and this sort of thing. So I told my husband, I said, now, if either one of us have to get up in the night and go outside the tent, to go to the bathroom, you wake the other one. I don't want to wake up in the morning and him gone, or him wake up in the morning and me gone.
Right.
So
did you guys take bear spray? Did they have that back then? Or
we had bear spray and we each had a firearm. We had two firearms that used the same ammo.
Okay, and bear spray.
And
you were putting your food up in a tree, or
no? We just left it in the panniers. But if you have 3 mules tied out there somewhere,
I keep forgetting
if
about
a
that.
lion or a bear comes around, you're going to know it pretty soon.
Well, and they can defend themselves pretty good too.
Well, yes, but they're going to raise a ruckus.
Yeah.
And probably break free.
Did that ever happen?
No. We saw a bear track in a sandbar, and we heard a lion one night way, a long ways away. But regarding the mules, they are extremely smart. They talk about mules being stubborn. They're smart. They don't get themselves into trouble. They don't scrape you on the trees. And if you're riding down the trail and the mule's ears are just flopping back and forth, everything's fine. If those ears lay back, you better hang on, because something's not right. And if they go forward, there's something there.
Ooh.
For instance, one day the mule my husband was riding, he usually rode in front and took care of the pack mule. The mule just refused to go. And so you look around and see what's going on. And down the trail a ways was a dead tree that had been dug in. Like an old decayed tree, you could tell where something had dug in it. Well, I think it was a bear probably digging for grubs, and that mule would not walk past that tree.
Oh, because it could sense it, smell
so
it.
So we had to go way out around. And so they are smart.
Huh.
They're very sure-footed. I mean, we didn't have to worry about anything. Just, all you do is stay on and look, because they watched where they were going. And it's really a pretty nice way to travel.
It sounds like it. I'd never thought of it. So what's the normal clip or, I guess, distance you're trying to accomplish with them on a day?
You go about 2 miles an hour.
So
with
almost
them.
So almost slower than if you were just hiking it, maybe, or about.
Yeah, you could probably walk it faster. You don't make that good a time because the time, for instance, my son would rather backpack because he says it's a lot less work. You just set up you put everything in your backpack. You don't have to deal with grazing the mules and.
Yeah, that's true. You do.
So of a morning, I would fix breakfast and we would eat. And while I was packing up everything, my husband would take the mules out and graze them. He would always hang on to 2 of them's lead ropes and could turn one loose because you didn't want to turn them all loose.
Right. No, nope.
And then, it'd be like 8:30, 9 o'clock by the time we'd get gone of a morning. So then we'd ride till 11:30, find a nice place where the mules could graze while we ate some lunch.
And they would just drink from a stream or whatever, because there was a lot of water all along.
Yes, and that's one nice thing about the guidebook. It tells you where to expect water.
Okay.
We tried to camp by water. We didn't get to every night, but most of the time.
Did you haul water with you then, a certain amount?
Just in our canteens.
What about filters? Did you do water filtering?
Either iodine or filter. We never cooked or drank anything that wasn't treated. Mostly iodine. Yeah. And they put neutralizer.
The tablets, the little, okay.
Neutralizer, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
We did not drink or cook with anything that wasn't treated.
Yeah.
We didn't want what you get.
No. But, like when I backpacked, I told you I did Kit Carson in Challenger. And you didn't, we backpack in and you can only take a certain amount of water. But
right.
That water at the top of that in the lake, in the stream, is some of the best water I've ever had.
Well, if you can find a spring or something like that. But, we just didn't want to take any chances on it.
Yeah, no.
And so I don't know where I was going with that, but...
Well, no, and
I know. He would graze the mules, and we'd at noon we would find a place where there was some grass for them to graze on, and usually by 5 o'clock we were done in for the day, and so we'd quit. So we didn't really make extremely good time.
yeah, but you were enjoying it and just
we were out to make
getting
time.
a fire and just you don't want. I don't think I'd want it to be like a pressure race when you're doing it. I mean,
no, I read where someone just set a new record. They did the whole thing in 10 days and something. What would be I mean, they were trying to set a
because
record.
they were running it or something.
But, but it was it was interesting. Most of the time, it was good.
So that first trip, you thought you were going to do all 480 or however many miles it was. Well, okay. So first question: when you were going to Waterton Canyon, did it still have the dirt road for 6 miles that you guys had to walk up, and then it switched into the trail that went up and then ties in with it?
Since this was the beginning of adventure, we didn't know what we were getting into. Our son rode a horse along with us that first 5 miles or whatever it is up to Strancha Dam.
Okay.
To make sure everything was okay.
Yeah.
And then he just took our picture and waved goodbye, and
Good
we were on our own.
Yeah, because you don't have a phone or anything. It's just like, and then were you going to check in with him at certain points then? Or was there a way?
I will tell you in a minute. That first day, we could not find a decent place to camp till we got to that South Platte City, and that was 16 miles. Ooh. I thought I would die getting off of that mule. And so then, let's see, where did we go? Well, we rode for 6 days then, and then the mules needed a rest, and we needed a rest. So the 6th night and the 7th night, we stayed at the same place. We rested a day.
Okay.
And I washed the jeans in the creek, and the mules needed a rest. Really, we all did.
Yeah, because how many miles had you done at that point?
I don't know.
It had to.
We were at Swan Creek, wherever that. We weren't that far from the highway over by Jefferson. Is that 287?
285?
285.
I think, yeah.
We weren't that far.
No, maybe it is. Yeah, I think it is 285.
We were beyond that. I take that back. We crossed that highway like on day 5. I used to know
is that
all of this.
Like Kenosha Pass, right? Is right up there at the top?
Yes. And it was beyond there.
In between Bailey and Jefferson, like where it cuts.
Kenosha Pass is exactly where we crossed.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, like I say, after 6 days, we needed a rest, and the mules needed a rest. And then we got to Twin Lakes, and we just decided, well, I was not very comfortable in the saddle I was riding. I kept telling my husband something was wrong with it, but when he rode it, he couldn't see the difference. And, well, we were just built different.
No, yeah.
So when we got to Twin Lakes, we called our son and asked him to come get us. And we had been out 17 days.
Okay.
And we'd ridden 15 of those. Ooh. And so he came and got us, and we went home and thought, well, that was a nice adventure. But all winter we kept thinking, well, what else is there out
You're
there?
like, we didn't finish.
I kept reading the book. So my husband bought me a new saddle. We found out that saddle was warped. The tree in it was warped, so no wonder it was so uncomfortable. He bought me a new saddle. It was fabulous. And so the next year, our son took us back to Twin Lakes.
You said we'll pick it up where we stopped.
We made it 5 days to Mount Princeton Hot Springs, and my husband pulled his shoulder, cinching up the saddle, and he couldn't lift any of the equipment.
Oh, that's a good place to stop.
So we went to Deer Valley Guest Ranch and called home. Again, nicest people there. They offered to come pack our stuff for us and everything. Really nice
there's
people.
Good people up there.
And so Ed came and got us again. And so the next year we thought, well, we can finish this. So this would have been in 97 then. We started at Mount Princeton, or that by Deer Valley. Mm-hmm. And we got all the way to Mullis Pass. And if you've ever gone down Elk Creek.
Where is that at? Where's Mullis Pass?
Mullis Pass is between Durango and Silverton.
Okay. Oh, okay.
In between before you get there, there's what's called Elk Creek. And coming down that mountain into the Elk Creek drainage are 30 switchbacks that are on the side of the mountain. They're just like this.
Ooh.
And it is rugged country. It's wonderful. You've got to see it.
Well, so there's there's 4 14ers down there that you can ride. You can only get there from Silverton on the train.
On the train.
Or you can pack in, but it's long, and I think it's the Chicago Basin.
Right.
That's right there. But yeah, it's rugged and gorgeous and one of the most pristine parts of Colorado.
Well,
it's on my list.
Coming down there, our pack mule lost one shoe and had 2 loose shoes. And that year we had borrowed a mule because one of our mules had foundered and couldn't go. So we get to Mullis Pass. Well, before that, we come to the train tracks. And then we read somewhere, well, the train goes at noon. So we looked at our watch. Oh, we're good, Well, it leaves Durango at noon. We got almost to the tracks, and here comes this train, and the mules just go berserk, choo-choo.
Yeah,
so back up the mountain we go to get out of the way from
this. Was after all the switchbacks and stuff?
Oh, yeah, down by the Animas River.
Okay, and then how do mules do on that? Because that's steep, rugged territory on those switchbacks.
Well, they do fine. No worries. It's just hard to, because it's so steep, you just keep wanting to go over, But no, they do fine.
And then they saw the train and said, we're getting out of here.
So then there's a swinging bridge over the Animas River. Well, the mule put one foot on that bridge, and they didn't like that.
No.
So...
like a wooden bridge?
Yeah, a nice wooden, you could probably ride a 4-wheeler across it, but it's light.
But a mule, that would be tough.
It's a suspension type bridge. So
do you have pictures of that?
Oh, yeah. So the one mule, it was more adventuresome than the others. So we discussed this, and so my husband rode the black mule across the bridge because he would go.
Right.
So then he came back, and then the others would follow.
Oh, because they saw it do it.
So the rest of us went across.
What an experience.
But it was, some of those things are just, they would walk on do you know what a corduroy bridge is?
I think so.
Across a bog.
Is that the rope one?
No, on a bog, they go in and lay...
the planks?
They lay poles, and then they lay canvas, and then they put gravel so that you don't sink into your knees in a bog.
Huh.
And the first time we came to one of those, the mules didn't want to step on it.
Where was that at?
It was about day 3.
Okay.
Because I think there were like 5 segments of that corduroy
Does that
bridge.
still happen now, where you have to go across?
I think so.
Interesting.
But once the mule stepped into that bog, they didn't like that. So then they just stepped up on the bridge and went across. And by a bridge, I mean it's just a raised path, basically.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get to Mullis Pass, and we had the choice of either trying to find someone to come out from Durango and put that shoe on that mule. My husband could have done it, but for some reason it wasn't our mule, and he was a little leery of that.
Gotcha. That was the one that you borrowed, or yeah.
So we again call Ed to come get us.
Like,
well,
hey,
this
buddy.
time it's clear to Durango.
Oh yeah. So you weren't at the end, but you were close.
We were 71 miles from the end.
Oh yeah.
So we called him to come get us, and we got in the pickup to go home, and 55 miles an hour just felt like you were flying after.
Yeah.
All those days. And
how many days was that you were out on that third year?
I think it was another 17 or so.
Okay, so it was 17, 5, 17.
Okay, when we got all done, and I'll tell you about that last year, we were out 43 days and rode 39 of those when all was said and done. So anyway, we go home and we say, we only have 71 miles to go. We're not going to let this go. So 1998, we knew we only had like 6 days, 71 miles, and we didn't want Ed to have to drive all the way over there home and then come get us. So we talked to some people who are trail angels, as they call them, people who will shuttle hikers.
Yeah.
That lived in Durango. We called Colorado Trail Foundation, got a hold of these people, and asked when we got done if they would take us back then to get the pickup at Mullis Pass. So we parked our pickup and trailer at Mullis Pass, and I think it took us 6 days to do that 71 miles. Indian Trail Ridge. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Between Molas Pass and Durango.
Just gorgeous.
Oh, I love the high country.
Yeah.
It is, but you have to watch out for the lightning also.
Yeah. So, because that's where you're up, like you said, the highest was, is that where you were 13 too?
Coney Summit is 13.2 something, and that's closer to Creed and Lake City. South of Lake City, up on mountains south of Lake City, actually.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure, just in that area.
Yeah, it's got to be close. I mean, I've been to Lake City many times.
That was so steep going up Coney Summit that going up those switchbacks, when my husband was up here and I was down here, I could have reached out and touched the feet of the pack mule.
Oh, geez.
It was so steep.
Yeah.
Going up those little, there weren't many, but there were switchbacks.
Yeah.
But anyway, when we got to Durango, I think we're about 3 miles out, we did have a cell phone by then. This was 1998. We had a cell phone.
Things were changing.
And so we called this couple, and the man was playing golf. The lady said, I'll come get you. So she came out there, and I stayed with the mules. And she took my husband all the way around to Molas Pass to get the pickup and trailer. And
That's really cool that they did that. And so that was when you finished it.
Yes.
Ed was like, no more. This is it. 3 times. That's
it.
Well,
but it would have been ridiculous for him to have driven 400 and...
Because you were almost there.
We only lacked those 6 days. So anyway, this is my journal.
That's funny, because I was going to ask you if you kept a journal that whole way. And
I did. Every evening I wrote.
Can I see that?
Oh, of course. Every evening I wrote. Yeah, that's the.
This is, just in case anyone's looking, this is the basically the.
Okay, that is still pictures put on a CD. It is not a live video. Those are if you'll notice, we had little cameras hanging around our neck. This was before digital cameras.
Oh wow! Look at this.
I bought Kodak disposable cameras.
Okay.
Because I thought, if we lose a camera, we lose all of our pictures. So I made little harnesses to hang them around our neck, because sometimes I had to turn loose of that camera really quick. And you could just pick it up. And those little disposable cameras took fabulous pictures, outdoor pictures. And that's what this is. It has, it is our pictures put on a CD and put to music. We had some people put it to music for us.
This is fascinating. And then, day 3, it had every year what you were doing, where you went, where you stopped, where you ate.
Yeah, and the list of equipment's in the back.
So what, did you write this down in a journal and then you just type,
Well, I just wrote it on. Yeah, I had a little spiral book I wrote in every night.
Before we get too old, you should publish this.
It is copyrighted, actually.
And is there some place where you can get it? You have it
you
self-published
can get
on
it from
Amazon
me.
or something?
I can run off copy. It's on my computer. I can run off a copy for you, but I copyrighted it. I don't know why, but I did. But it's never.
Well, who knows? Maybe if people are listening to this, you could put it on Amazon. It's pretty easy to self-publish.
Well, I don't mind people reading it. It's might be kind of boring for them, but the list of equipment and stuff is in the back. And
oh, really? Kind of like everything that you needed to
everything
take
we had.
And pack.
We each took one change of clothes.
And in every single segment's on here?
You had to, we had to have some first aid equipment. One person said to me, what happens if one of you gets hurt? And, of course, we thought of that.
Yeah, because you didn't have satellite phones like we carry now, or not phones, but, in reach.
The longest we went without seeing another person was 4 days. Now, by tracks in the trail, we know there were people probably ahead of us. The trail was not as busy as it is now.
That's what I was going to ask.
I think now it'd be so busy. But one person said to me, what if one of you get hurt? And I said, well, you assess the situation. If they are such that you can leave them with some stuff and go for help, if they're such that you just have to stay there with them to keep them alive, you just wait for someone to come along.
Because the longest was 4 days, and you have the food, so that's the safest decision.
I think if we would have sat there, I think someone would have come along probably within a day.
Because you weren't moving. I gotcha.
But I said to my husband, what happens if a mule breaks a leg? And he says, well, we'd have to shoot it. And I said, what if I break a leg? And he says, so that wasn't very encouraging.
That's a good story.
But, it was...
just gives you the, hey, shrug, hey, we got to do what we got to do.
But there was another couple that kind of wanted to go with us, and I'm so thankful we didn't take anyone because we didn't know what we were getting into.
Yeah.
And not that they might not have been good. I mean, they would have probably been okay, but...
They just wouldn't have been friends anymore.
Well...
Those things are tough if you don't know what you're getting into.
We only had to take care of each other.
Right.
And that was, for an unknown, that's enough.
Yeah.
One thing I happen to think of, which is totally off the subject, did you know that in a wilderness area, you're only allowed 15 heartbeats in a group?
No.
Okay, we had 3 mules and 2 people. That's 5 heartbeats. In a wilderness area, in order to, I mean, it's just a rule, I presume it's still there, to keep from overtaxing the grazing and all this sort of thing. So if you have 2 people, 2 horses, and 2 dogs, you have 6 heartbeats. Anything that has a beating heart in it is a heartbeat.
Weird. Yeah, I didn't know that rule. I mean, that's because now you see the 14ers have become so popular, and I don't know which ones are in wilderness areas, but sometimes you have church groups going. I mean, so that...
But they probably don't.
Of course, that's on the trail and everything, so I don't know.
I think this might be for camping, but I'm not sure. I need to check into that. But at that time...
I'm definitely going to look it up now.
At that time, I know they said 15 heartbeats.
Well, now you have to worry about drones flying around and iPhones and music and, you know.
But see, this was our GPS. And another thing that was interesting, you'd think, well, why do you need a book like this? Well, let's say you come to a road, and there was a time or two we did that. We came to this road over by Vicksburg, and there was a sign there that pointed to the left. But how did you know how far?
No, I totally agree. And what we had was a book on 14ers by Jerry Roach. And so now it's an app, you know, and even on those, we download the app ahead of time, and that you're looking at it.
That's what these people do too. But had we have not had this book, the sign said turn left, but how far? So you go a mile and you say, did I miss the trail? Well, it happened to be that particular time, 6 miles. They have rerouted that. We had just come over Hope Pass, which was, well, the reason it got its name is they hope you never have to go over it again.
Wow.
And they've rerouted now so that you just cross this road that we had to go down 6 miles on a Sunday on a dirt road, and that was not fun. A lot of traffic. But how would we have known where the trail went off of that road if we hadn't had the book?
Yeah. And so did you run into some good people on the trail, or was it just, just made some friends? I mean,
well, we didn't really see a lot of people. We once in a while you'd meet up with. Most everyone was going the same direction we were going. Once in a while you'd meet one coming our direction, and we did chat with a few people, but.
Mostly everyone was just doing their own thing. What about, was there any time you were scared or any weird experiences, or was it all pretty?
No, well, the only time I cried was when the mules ran away.
Okay, when the 2 ran away.
All 3 ran away.
Oh, that's not good.
I take that back. 2 ran away, and the other one was so berserk, tied to the tree that you couldn't even...
Was that the train, or was that just a different...
No, the other 2 had gone over a hill, and the one couldn't see him.
Was this the first year, or was this later?
This was second year, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway, I would have to...
Because if it was the first year, there probably wouldn't be a second year. Because if you're crying in the first year, I don't know if you go back. Right?
I don't cry easily. But mules have to have a companion. Either a horse or another mule, a llama, a donkey, a goat, something. They are not loners. But anyway, we had 1 tied and 2 loose. Well, the 2 that were loose just went over a little knoll. And this other one, he went so berserk that we didn't even try to halter him. We just left him tied. So after my little crying spell, I took the lead rope and I started walking over there. Well, I go over the knoll, maybe I wasn't even half a mile.
Right.
And they're standing there grazing, well, my husband came up there, and the one named Sally, which was the young one that we had raised, and she was kind of my friend. She wouldn't let my husband's name is Leroy. She wouldn't let Leroy catch her. So I put the lead rope behind my back, and I walk up there, and I say, "Oh, Sally, come here." I walk right up to her and put the lead rope on her and lead them back to camp.
Yeah.
So I don't think they would have gone anywhere.
Well, because if they all would have left, there's your food, your pack.
No, the packs were off because this was evening. We were stopped for the evening.
Okay. Yeah, because that could get bad. I mean, if you don't have food.
No, we would, when my husband would graze them, he would, like I said, he would hold on to 2 lead ropes and let one mule loose. The young mule would have never left on her own.
Mm.
I don't know, the one older one might have.
Interesting.
But they're just interesting
They
critters.
are.
They are. They're so much smarter than a horse. And my husband loved his horses, his cattle horses. When he worked cattle, he rode his horse.
Yeah.
But when he went to the mountains, he took his mules.
Because they were so smart and loyal and just,
Yeah.
Huh. And then so if somebody's just listening and not watching, here's some of kind of the summary here. So total days on trail, 43 days, 42 nights. And this is the accumulation of all 4 years from 95 to 1998.
Correct.
Total days traveling, 39. Total miles traveled, 471.4. Right. So average miles per day, 12. Yeah. That's pretty outstanding.
Because I can remember one day when we only did 5 because we stopped for the mules to get a drink, and the pack mule was being a little obnoxious, and he laid down, and the pack was all crooked, so we just stopped for the
Great,
day.
Thanks. We're just going to go 5 because of you, buddy.
Yeah.
And in segments, it looks like there was, 28 segments.
Yes.
Okay, so if I was going to take my son, we were talking a little before we started, do you think you just go to Waterton and try and do one segment?
Well, one thing you have to consider is when you get to the end of that segment, who's going to pick you up?
Yeah.
Is someone going to pick you up? It depends on if your goal is to gradually say you've completed the whole thing. I think there are prettier segments than those first few. I like it once you get further on. The thing about from Waterton Canyon to Copper Mountain, you're going up and over, up and over, up and over. Once you get to Copper Mountain, you head more south and you're going like this with the mountains. To me, the most awesome part is from, Mullis Pass to Durango, or from Highway 50 on. It's a little more remote, but any of it's good. Any of it's good. It depends on whether you want to be in the timber. The first part of it is more in the timber. The last part is, Indian Trail Ridge is way up there. So, and you have to consider, if where someone can come in to pick you up.
Sure.
Or if you're going to hike and then backtrack, I
just think it'd be neat because that's your first experience for him backpacking and, camping out, and it'd just be neat.
Now, that's one thing my son does over at Buena Vista. He is called a trail angel. And people will call the Colorado Trail Foundation, and they will refer them to him. And say, for instance, they want to start at Twin Lakes and finish at Cottonwood Pass.
Okay.
So they want to leave their car at Twin Lakes, and so they let him know when they get to Cottonwood Pass, he picks them up and takes them back to their car.
Yeah, that's still a pretty far distance because that's almost Leadville to Buena Vista.
Yeah, that'd be
like 36 miles or something.
It's so they're out several days.
Mm-hmm. But that's doable.
Oh yeah,
because that's a 4 or a 5 day if you're not pushing it too hard.
Or you can do Tennessee Pass to Twin Lakes. We did that in 3 days not long ago, in 2016. It's the last time
I did? I was just going to ask you that, if you had been back.
It was the last time I had backpacked. See, my son and I have backpacked a lot. I've over about 13 years, I backpacked about 600 miles with him.
Okay.
And I didn't start till I was in my 60s.
That is awesome.
So,
That's part of the reason I wanted. I mean, that's just a fascinating story. And it shows people that are listening to this what you can go do. Because in 2016, how old were you?
I would have been 80 that fall. So
So
I was 79.
So you were 79 and you were where'd you backpack?
From Tennessee Pass to Twin Lakes. It was like 3 days, 3 nights. I can't remember if it was 2 nights or 3 nights.
And you guys slept out on the trail?
Oh, yeah. I went, my niece wanted to backpack with me once before I quit. So I told her, I said, it's this year.
And then, so you're done?
Well,
that was the last time?
As far as overnight backpacking, yes. But my son, my niece, and my grandson, who would have been about 17 at that time, we did that. And
what a neat experience.
And that would be a good, I mean, there'd be quite a few people on it, but it's not extreme.
Was it harder on your body? I mean, obviously, you just knocked it out?
Well, they had to wait on me quite a bit.
Yeah, but I mean,
No, over the years when my son and I have backpacked, and the reason I got into that was in 2001, I think it was, I signed up. I wanted to backpack. I never had. And so I signed up to go on a supported trek with the Colorado Trail Foundation.
Nice.
And their supported treks is you take all your own equipment, but all you carry in the day is a day pack. They carry your tent and sleeping bag and stuff to where you're going to camp for the night, and they supply all the food. So you just carry a day pack.
Just to get you into it and see what you're...
So I did that. That was a 5-day hike, and that was fun. So I did it again the next year. Well, then it started getting too expensive. And my son said, backpack with me. He said, you can do it free, but you have to carry your own stuff. So I started just backpacking with him. And we've done quite a bit of the Continental Divide Trail in Colorado and some in New Mexico.
Wow.
The Gila River in New Mexico is awesome.
Gorgeous.
We hiked 40-some miles, and I think it was 3 days or 4 days. But anyway, the first 16 miles was along the Gila River. Well, you don't go up and down when you're, rivers are...
Yeah, you're just going along it and
But
enjoying
in 16 miles, we waded the river 54 times.
Ooh.
Because it was in the...
You're going back, it's in there.
But that's awesome country, too.
I bet.
His goal is to do the entire Continental Divide Trail. And so far, he started Old Mexico, and he's gotten as far as the Wind Rivers mountains in Wyoming. Because he can only do a little at a time.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's just fascinating. I know how much I admire you hearing this story because, like, even when I backpack this summer, I mean, I feel the pain in my back when I'm sleeping, and I take a pad, one of the little air pads. Do you use anything like that, or you just use a roll, or?
Well, I didn't take anything because my goal was I just couldn't carry an extremely heavy pack.
Right.
When I first started, my pack weighed about 24 pounds when I started. Well, in the meantime, since then, I bought a lighter weight pack, and I bought a tent that weighed 15 ounces.
Okay.
And so I got it down to 18 pounds. And I didn't carry a pad, but my son felt sorry for me, so he would carry a little inflatable mattress for me.
Good.
But he would say, I can carry some of your stuff. And I said, if I can't carry my own stuff, I need to stay home. You have enough of your own stuff to carry.
Right.
So I have awesome memories, just being out there.
Yeah, just going out. There's nothing like it. Being out in the wilderness and the mountain. I love the mountains.
Oh, I do too, in the summer.
In the summer. I even like it in the winter because we've done some winter hikes and stuff. It's just a different thing.
I'm not into the cold that much.
It does get cold.
But sleeping on the ground didn't bother me. And I always, you're tired, but I always slept pretty good at night knowing that my son, who was in law enforcement,
right,
had a sidearm.
Yeah.
And he and his dog were in the tent, in the next tent. So
it makes a difference when you feel safe.
I had my bodyguard.
Yeah, and you're going to sleep way better when you're safe. So,
yeah.
Huh. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for coming in because we've been going almost an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness.
So I
well,
really appreciate
As
it.
you can tell, I enjoy talking about it because it was an awesome experience.
Well, it's an awesome story. The whole thing, the homestead, the Colorado Trail. And I, thank you for coming in here. And when we post this, if I get any questions about your notes or the book, I'll just let people know where they can get it. We'll see what happens.
That's fine because, like I say, it might not be that interesting because
You never
it's
know.
just what we ate and where we went. But there's one day I got bored, so I counted how many steps we did that day.
Oh, there you go.
But
Well, yeah. Thank you very much, Eleanor.
thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.